Happy Fangsgiving, ladies and gentlemen. Halloween is over, but our love for all things horribly harrowing is far from it. In this corner, the Red Menace turns bitingly cold in the Twilight Zone. And the challenger, toothless but ruthless, Goosebumps. The years passed in the blink of an eye on Put Up Your Spooks.
This is We Bleed Orange and Black, the podcast for Halloween and horror lovers. Join us as we interview creators, discuss our favorite horror, and share original spooky stories. And occasionally, we have a holiday special. Ryan, it's time for my third favorite episode of the year, Fangsgiving. Happy Fangsgiving. What are you drinking?
It seems only fitting that I finished the last of my coffee pumpkin cider.
I was looking for a drink to have for our Fangsgiving episode, and I was like, I feel like I can't have Oktoberfest since it's our Halloween wrap-up, and I didn't yet want to dip into like the winter ales or the winter lagers, so I am drinking an amber ale to keep with the blood red theme of Fangsgiving. So last year, I brought an episode from the 1985 season of Twilight Zone. This year, it's back with an episode called Red Snow. A man flees through the streets of Moscow, but there's no escape. The KGB rolls up on him and takes him into custody. Colonel Ulyanov searches him and finds several books of literature and a letter to his mother. He knows the man is a dissident, and he has dissented for the last time. He plans to send him on a one-way trip to the frozen gulags of Siberia. The colonel watches the man get dragged away, and then he reluctantly puts the letter into the mailbox. Back at KGB headquarters, his boss gets an update on the case. Another officer, Vladimir, played by the Wishmaster guy, thinks the dissident should be executed.
We also have the option of exile, where he may reflect on his errors and be of use someday.
An execution it shall be.
The boss signs off on the execution. He tells the colonel about two party members who were suspiciously murdered in the Siberian gulags. But because the colonel has no political connections, he's being sent there to investigate. Colonel Ulyanov arrives in Siberia in the middle of the day, but everything is pitch black. The sun won't come up for months. His liaison, Ivan, brings him into the main building where the villagers are playing music. Ulyanov announces that this backwards Romani music has been banned by Moscow. But this ain't Moscow, baby. Rock on, my dudes. He's greeted by Titov, the village mayor, who says there was nothing suspicious about the dead party members.
What is there to investigate? Borisa was torn apart by wolves, and Andreev cut his own throat.
The colonel recognizes a woman he knows as Valentina, and she tells him he must be mistaken. Colonel Ulyanov presses Ivan for files on all of the people exiled to that gulag, as well as information on the villagers, specifically Valentina. Ivan stonewalls him for a while, but he eventually produces the files. There are no murderers or violent criminals on the list, and that woman is Valentina's daughter. The colonel wants to check out the church in town, but Ivan and the mayor tell him it was shut down years ago. Why then, the colonel says, are there footprints leading in and out? They examine the bodies, which have literally been kept on ice. Colonel Ulyanov finds it strange that the bodies are completely bloodless. And when they go out to search the site of the wolf attack, they hear a wolf nearby. They start to panic, and then the colonel sees the wolf. Valentina is also there. She pops fangs and chows down on the wolf. Colonel Ulyanov runs, only to catch a clout from a club. When the colonel regains consciousness, the mayor swears he wants him to return to Moscow safely, because he knows that if a third party member dies, the KGB will show up with an entire battalion. The colonel is more interested in what he saw.
Is it common around here to see a beautiful young woman feeding on a wolf she just killed?
Vorvalika, the undead. Creatures who drink the blood of other creatures and live forever. It's time for you to show me what you're hiding in your church, Comrade Mayor.
They break into the church and find rows of coffins. He pries them open, but they're all empty because the vampires are right behind them. The mayor explains that the war has driven the vampires towards the gulags. There was conflict at first, but they realized that they were not so different. They should be friends. They should be partners. The villagers protect the vampires during the summer months, and the vampires protect the villagers from animals, criminals, and communists during the winter. Valentina is a woman who was exiled there decades ago, but she has become a vampire. Ivan has also chosen to become a vampire for the strength to survive the cruelties of Siberia, as well as the tyranny of the Soviet Union. Valentina wants to kill the colonel, but the mayor says he can be trusted. They'll send him back to Moscow and he'll cover everything up. But the colonel doesn't trust the undead. He grabs the mayor and runs out into the forest, where they are immediately pounced upon by more wolves. The mayor gets chomped. The vampires scare away the other wolf and make Colonel Ulyanov an Ulyanoffer.
Here, comrade. Here is the real Russia. The old beliefs. The primal strength. That strength could be yours. Yours. To help right all the wrongs. All the sufferings of the people through the centuries. Do you dare to partake of that strength? Comrade.
We return to KGB HQ. The colonel explains that he caught the murderer and restored order. The big boss is pleased.
Well done, comrade. I'm only sorry we don't have more like you here.
You will, comrade. You will.
Zastane вовремя. Товарищ.
I should have seen it coming, but I didn't really know they were going to be vampires. I thought it was going to be like some Siberian spirit or like, you know, spirit of the woods or something, or wolves.
You do know that the theme of Fangsgiving is vampires, right?
I was really not paying attention.
Wow.
When the lady was like, I'm a vampire, and she showed her fangs, I was like, oh, right, I forgot.
I was gonna say that I bet this episode hit so hard when you didn't know it was about vampires, because it's a very slow, cold burn.
But then when the vampires do get revealed, it's like, oh, cool, like we can all work together, comrades. And then the guy becomes a vampire and goes back to Moscow, and like, you know, everything comes up roses. It's like there's like no, there's really no like fear or horror or drama. There's no violence.
There's a Twilight Zone twist, which is that he spent his whole life trying to save people and to not become a monster, and
right.
He failed, and only in becoming a monster is he able to finally work against the KGB inside their own ranks.
Double twist, the monsters aren't monsters.
Double twist, the real monsters were the KGB all along. It's only a matter of time until summer comes around and people in the KGB are like, you're not showing up for any of our meetings during the day.
I request night shift.
Yes.
You know, as usual, 1980s Twilight Zone, just about good people helping each other, being sweet to each other.
Doing what's right, being friends and partners. The only part of this episode I remember from the original airing was that scene with Ulyanov in the boss's office at the end, where he reveals his fangs. For some reason, that stuck in my head. And I don't know, maybe I missed the rest of the episode because television was sort of catch as catch can back in the day.
I enjoyed seeing all the actors with their Russian accents because oftentimes, particularly in my experience, I'll be watching Stargate and there's an actor and he's like, comrade, we have own Stargate program. And then you see the actor in something else and they're like, hey buddy, what's going on? Everything's fine. And you're like, whoa, disconnect. But in this episode, there's a guy who is also in Lost, also playing a Russian character. So I was like, oh shit, maybe that guy genuinely is Russian.
It feels like not a lot happened in the episode, and yet my notes ran pretty long, which is why I tried to get through them quickly, because obviously, this being our Fangsgiving episode, you know the surprise is going to be vampires. But I don't think vampires showed up all that often on Twilight Zone, so pretty cool surprise when you're expecting aliens or the little people of Killarney to get a bloodsucker. Tell us about your episode.
My episode is Goosebumps Vampire Breath. On IMDb, these characters are called Freddie and Kara Renfield. I don't remember if they call them that in the episodes, although I did watch it like 3 times.
They never used the Renfield name in the episode that I recall.
I didn't think so. Okay.
Maybe that's from the book, though.
Freddie and Kara are 12-year-old siblings. Their parents are about to go out for the night, and the dad's like, don't you go looking for your birthday presents. And they're like, well, okay, we won't do that. And then the parents leave, leaving, the kids immediately go looking for their birthday presents. They go down to the creepy basement. They knock over a huge bookshelf, and then there's like a weird door back there. I don't even think the bookshelf had a back to it. They're like,
this is weird. I never knew this was here. Me neither.
I did think it was funny that they were down in their own basement where they've lived for almost 13 years, and they're like, this place is creepy. It's very much, as you know, tonight at midnight we turn 13.
They open the door, and they're like, it's like a cave with lit torches, like a dank, vast cave system underneath suburban Toronto.
And Freddy just grabs a lit torch off the
grabs
wall
a torch.
and is
Doesn't
like,
even go back for a flashlight.
Doesn't skip a beat. Fantastic.
And they're exploring these cave systems. They're not laying down breadcrumbs or nothing. And then they happen upon another chamber wherein lies a big scary coffin. And they're like, uh-oh. So then they turn around to leave, and they trip over a bottle that's just on the floor.
What was that? Vampire breath? Some kind of joke. I don't know, Freddy. Maybe we shouldn't open it. Whoa! Stinks. Close it up.
And the cork pops, and a wisp of breath goes into the coffin, and then blah! Count Nightwing pops out. And he's like, hello, children. I can smell your sweet blood. It's so fresh. I want to drink it down. And they're like, whoa, they run away. But he like supercharges and gets past them to the creepy basement door and locks them in to the basement catacombs. And then he's like, I still want to drink your blood, by the way. And they're like, wait a minute, you don't have any fangs. And he's like, oh, how embarrassing. And then they're like, okay, if we get the rest of your vampire breath, you won't eat us and drink our blood, right?
How dare you haggle with me? I am immortal. I am invincible.
You're toothless.
They find the vampire breath, and then Freddy's about to hand it over, and he's like, okay, now you remember our deal, right? And the Count Nightwing's like, never trust a vampire, dummy. So then they like run away because they haven't given him the breath yet.
The kids charge into Nightwing's coffin, which crashes down and becomes a minecart that hurtles down a roller coaster that they have inside this bottomless cavern underneath their house.
Into another chamber of these bottomless caverns, which are dripping and have rivers and vines and stalactites. Down in this further chamber, they meet a little girl who's like, yeah, I just hang out down here and polish coffins. There's a whole mess of coffins down there. There's no vampires because they're all out hunting for the night.
But not like 7 or 10 or 20 coffins like there were in my episode. There's like hundreds of coffins on a painted backdrop that sort of stretches into infinity. It's fantastic. It's like Inner Earth, Planet of the Vampires.
So they're like, well, yeah, we've got his breath. And the little girl's like, you've got his breath? And then they can't find it. They dropped it somewhere. So they gotta hunt around for it. Then Count Nightwing, he's like, I'm coming down the slide. And he's coming down. So the little girl's like, hide in these coffins. And they're like, oh, no. And then they find the breath and pocket it, and then they hide in the coffins. Count Nightwing comes down, and he's like, tell me where they are, you little weirdo. And she's like, I won't do it. And then Kara, like, just comes out of the coffin, and he grabs her, and then he covers her mouth and speaks in her voice, but he goes like, help me, he's got me. Which she probably would have said on her own. And then, of course, Freddy pops out of the coffin. He's like, you sucker, I got your sister, now give me the vampire's breath. And he, like, plays Key Boy. He tosses it to the weird little girl that's, like, the coffin polisher. And she's like, psych, I'm also a vampire, pops fangs. And they're like, what? You're a vampire?
Of course she's a vampire. A greedy little vampire who dares to rob me of my breath, my very essence.
Just enough left to make me even more powerful than you.
She tries to get the breath, but Count Nightwing wrestles her and has like a really tough time getting this vampire breath away from this little girl vampire. The two kids run away. Count Nightwing gets his breath, breathes it in, and then he says to the little vampire girl, you're really bugging me. And he waves his hand and turns her into a beetle. So the kids run up, they barge out of the catacombs finally into the cellar, and their parents are down there. And they're like, Mom, Dad, there's a vampire. Oh, God in heaven. And then Count Nightwing barges out, and they're like, oh, Jesus, get across, get a steak. And the mom is like, Daddy? And he's like, my little girl. Oh, and they're like, we thought we'd lost you. Behind the door, the giant door in their basement that they know is there, and then he finds his dentures. They're just over on a cabinet in the basement. What are you talking about? We thought we'd lost you. The kids are like, he's a vampire, and they're like, we know, we're all vampires. It's just like that Simpsons episode. And then the kids are like, but if you're vampires, that means that we're vampires. And they're like, yeah, we don't usually tell you about these things until you're 13. By the way, it's midnight. And then the kids pop fangs painfully, bloodily. Count Nightwing is like, whew, that was a close one. Sorry, grandkids. And then the mom and dad are like, another surprise for you up in your bedrooms. And the kid's like, I don't think we can deal with any more surprises. And they go upstairs and they're bunk bed coffins, which they now have to sleep in. And they do. And they don't even say boo about it. By the way, these kids are like, the whole time they're like, I'm scared. It's a vampire. Oh, what will we do?
I think the challenge was in casting 2 child actors that are the same exact age and who are vampires. Like, trying to get those people to play the parts, you know, it's good. It's going to limit your pool.
It is tricky, yeah. The end.
Never trust a vampire.
I had a commercial break before the reveal of the birthday presents, so I didn't watch beyond that.
Well, so yeah, I was like, oh, it must be over, certainly. No.
I thought the episode ended with them saying, we can't handle any more surprises. And so in my mind, the birthday gift they were to receive at midnight,
a body for them to drink out of
when they become vampires, was going to be like a baby.
Or just one of their classmates or something. Yeah. Because they say, oh, the fangs will hurt until your first meal.
I always heard the book Vampire Breath, and I assumed it was like an insult. Like, you're gross, you have vampire breath, and maybe that vampire has stinky breath.
Right.
It never occurred to me that no, it was like the essence of the vampire in a bottle. And they created this whole other lore about how when the vampire would rest, they would store their power and their memories inside the bottle. So in case anything happened to their body, they would live on, but only as breath. And I don't know how you could live on if your body's destroyed unless the breath reincarnates you as a vampire.
You can't possess another, because if they drink your breath, they just get your powers, as the little girl was attempting to do.
I thought that was pretty cool that vampires could leech off of each other's powers by going for the breath, and the breath was always in a secret location and stuff like that. So I thought that was all very interesting. This town has so many vampires, as seen in that painted backdrop, that...
And they're not dormant, because they're all out of their coffins
hunting. So I don't know if they just glamour and take a little bit and then leave their victims alive, or if they're just mowing through Canada, but that place needs Blade. As goofy as this was, I really was charmed by the idea of finding a secret door in your house, which is something I always fantasized about as a kid.
Sure, of course. Who didn't?
And then, you know, there's torch-lit caverns and hallways and crypts, and there's a vampire, and then it turns into a crazy roller coaster ride, and then there's an inner world down there. I thought all that was so fun. It was so whimsical.
Well, I'm glad.
Now for your big surprise.
So instead of doing ratings, we are instead going to recap our 2025 Halloween season.
Halloween's over, but maybe we could live like this forever.
I got a bit of an early start. I got to do a lot of fun stuff. We recorded the Spooktacular episodes, as we do every year. That was a lot of fun. I got to have a couple author events, did some storytelling events. That was really cool. And then for the last week of October, I flew to Los Angeles and got to hang out with Ryan.
For Halloween.
The day I flew in, you'd already had like a full day of being out and about.
We went and saw all kind of cats at the Natural History Museum. We went and got some coffee. Then Jeff showed up at the coffee shop.
Then me, Ryan, and Elliot cruised on over to Philippe's French Dip, which controversially also claims to be the original home of the French Dip, much like Cole's in downtown LA.
Still unproven, however. At least we're getting some tasty French dips out of these adventures.
That's true. I don't care who's right, as long as I get to eat delicious French dip sandwiches. After that, we walked on over to Alvera Street, which is sort of the Little Mexico. Kind of amusing since so much of Los Angeles is steeped in Mexican culture, but Alvera Street is sort of the historic heart of Mexican culture. We were there to get some horchata, which is hard to come by where I'm at, and we were delighted and surprised to witness a Dia de los Muertos parade.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
There was a full marching band. There were Aztec dancers in traditional indigenous costume. The whole parade did a lap of Alvera Street and then ended up back in the town square Zocalo area. And so we were just inhaling metric tons of copal incense, walking around, checking out all the ofrendas, watching the dancing, listening to the music. And at one point, a giant Katrina, like a giant skeletal woman on stilts, walked through, and like we went over and asked her if we could take photos, and then she was silently waving us in and trying to get us to go into this building. And normally we would 100% go wherever a giant skeleton waves us in, but it was a church service. And so we're like, nah.
Backpedal.
We're not going to church. So instead, we went across the street to Union Station, which is a beautiful old train station in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. And we had a beverage. And then it was time to stretch our legs. We walked all the way further downtown. We saw the Bradbury Building, which is always a beautiful beacon in the night. We happened upon a thrash metal show. And then we got on the metro, took it to Little Tokyo, so we could have some delicious ramen at Daikokuya.
The theme of this year's Halloween was walking.
Yeah, we got our steps in.
Sunday, we went to Dunkin's so I could get a scary Halloween bucket of 50 munchkins.
Stale munchkins.
Which I did finish.
Congrats.
I enjoyed it. Then we went to see Tron. And then, as we were driving to Tron, we drove by a Swingers, and it said Swingers Coffee Shop. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they named it the same as our beloved old West Side Cafe that we used to go to every Halloween night, rain or shine. And Jeff was like, no, that's Swingers. It's the same restaurant. So after the movie, we went to Swingers, and they had the same decorations on the walls, the same vibe.
It was pretty incredible because I had been to this secondary, lesser backup Swingers exactly once because the mothership was on the west side. And like we said, we made this part of our Halloween plans every year. It was the official Halloween after party.
Because a bazillion people go there in costume. Everybody's talking to everybody. I got my beloved Swingers Rocket Shake, and it was a good thing I did. It's an espresso milkshake. It was a good thing I did because after that, we did some walking.
Oh, right. I didn't even put that in my notes.
We walked around the neighborhood. And the goal was to walk until we found 3 to 5 jack-o'-lanterns. It took a while, but damn it, we did it.
Yeah, we're not playing with this whole Halloween thing. On Monday, we went to Burbank to hit all of the spooky shops. We got to link up with our buddy Ed. We went to Halloween Town. It's a wrap to look at production-used costumes and props. We went to the Mystic Museum. We went to the Bodega. We went to a couple prop and costume shops. This place in Burbank on Magnolia Avenue is sort of like Spook Central.
And then we hit up this place called No Bar, where Jeff spent at least 5 hours curating a jukebox spooky playlist to the point where other patrons were like, come on, guys.
So we walk into this bar. It's almost completely empty, but everything is decked out for Halloween and absolutely smothered in cobwebs. So we're like, oh, this must be the place. So we go in and we get some drinks from Jerry, the bartender. Shout out to Jerry. Ryan sees the jukebox, looks for a couple spooky songs, and then we start debating what is Halloween music. Jerry had a lot of strong opinions. We solicited some other people at the bar. bar. They also had strong opinions. They were all wrong, and so we had to educate them with hours of spooky tunes.
Then we went to an arcade bar.
We walked even further. We were so far out there that we realized we were in North Hollywood, and we're like, all right, well, then we got to pop into Idle Hour, which is our normal Halloween spot.
Tuesday, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed somehow, we went to the Promenade on 3rd Street in Santa Monica.
I've been hearing a lot of claptrap about how bad the 3rd Street Promenade area in Santa Monica has gotten. We went and checked out a mini golf place that was really fun, and then we kept walking around, and I was like, yeah, this doesn't seem all that bad. This is not nearly as bad as what I've been hearing about. So we went to the Santa Monica Pier. We walked all the way up to Venice, the town next door, and checked out some of our favorite restaurants, got some delicious omusubi, and then we headed back through the 3rd Street Promenade after dark, and it was fine.
Then we carved some pumpkins, and I finally get to show Jeff Mr. Boogedy and Bride of Boogedy, which I really didn't think we were going to get to. Wednesday, we went to get some pancakes at the Grove at Dupar's.
I had heard on the No Proscenium podcast that the best pancakes in Los Angeles were, without a question, at Dupar's, so that was on my list. We did it.
I can't believe we'd never been there before because we do love a good pancake.
Ooh, it ain't cheap, but those pancakes were delicious.
They were delicious, but pro tip, if you're going to Dupar's, park in the Dupar's parking lot, not the Grove parking lot. Then we went to the Academy Museum and saw a really sweet Jaws exhibit.
I'm not a giant Jaws head because I grew up with Jaws. I had Sharkmania, I had Sharkphobia. I sort of lived, loved, breathed Jaws, so it never occurred to me to become like a fan of Jaws. It was just sort of part of my upbringing. But to walk through the exhibit and see the actual props and costumes, screenplays, and
that's always exciting to me.
It was so cool. It was so well done.
Not very Halloween-y, but still cool.
We finished that up with a walk around the La Brea Tar Pits, one of the strangest and stinkiest attractions in all of Los Angeles, and that's saying something. After that, it was time to
enter Delusion,
the immersive interactive theater event. This was a new location, and as always, a new location brings fresh changes and new challenges. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
It was a very cool show. It was not the typical show that we always complain about where we have to resurrect some old family member. There was swinging on ropes, there was riding on boats, there was hiding under beds, which I'm always a fan of. I did get pulled aside at one point, so that was good, although I didn't really have to do much.
It was our buddy Ed who really got the full experience.
Ed got pulled aside to be a human sacrifice. The only problem was the venue was an all-indoor venue this year, so usually they do that at these fabulous mansions with extensive grounds. They hire food vendors and drink vendors, and there's this like wonderful, not carnival atmosphere, but maybe fair atmosphere.
Yeah, you're sitting outside and you're waiting for something delicious to come off a grill.
Yeah,
while you're
eating good food,
drinking
you're drinking
a cocktail,
good drinks,
drinking a beer, and talking about last year's event and thinking about what this year's event's going to be like, and all that was gone.
This year, in the middle of the show, they had this incredible Medusa, and we were blown away by it.
Literally made my jaw drop. That alone was almost worth the price of admission.
Yeah. I went to the bathroom the second we got to the venue, and I saw Jason Segel down there, and I was like, oh shit, and he's just as giant in real life. And then we were going to go in with his group, and I was like, guys, let's go, they're calling us. And Jeff was like, bah, we're here early, let's finish our drinks. And I was like, but Jason Segel.
I had to fill my bladder, okay? I have a very specific process.
And so in previous years, with our package that we purchased, we were able to, as we've said, play a part in the scenes, and it was so fun. It really brought me back to me old Trails of Terror days.
Becoming a character really is a dream come true every year.
And this year they didn't do it. We only got to do a little behind-the-scenes tour of 2 of the scenes, which was fun, but not even close. It did not hold a candle. If you're our kind of person.
Thursday,
we went to Culver City and we got some ramen, and then we walked and walked and walked. Then we went to the soiree.
Yeah, so probably one of the biggest ticket items of our whole week was House of Spirits, the haunted cocktail soiree.
Yeah, we probably should branch out more, but like at this point we've done just about everything.
Last year was the first time visiting the House of Spirits, and we had such a good time. It was probably my highlight. So surprising and interactive and immersive. So many great drinks, costumes, characters to interact with, and storylines to follow, and quests to complete. So we got all gussied up. We got our VIP tickets because we were definitely hitting House of Spirits again this year.
It was still wonderful. However, diminishing returns. They did not have as much interactivity as they did in previous years. They did not have included drink stations, so you had to buy all your drinks. Last year we got like 4 drinks included in the package, and it was probably a cheaper package last year.
This was more of a QR code based experience, and so we were wandering around with our phones out, taking pictures of QR codes to pull up riddles that would bring us to other QR codes. There weren't as many characters or opportunities for interactivity, and at the end of the evening, even though we had paid for the VIP ticket that gave us extra time, the final characters had left for the night and gone home.
They'd already gone home.
So we couldn't complete the quest. So it was only because I stole the QR code that I was able to get the final prize.
So then after soiree, so I had met up with a couple of my friends, and they joined us at the soiree, and then we all went back to the Glendale tap room for 1 beer, and then we dragged them around for another like 2 hours. They all had work in the morning because Jeff had found 2 bars in Hollywood that were doing costume parties.
So hear me out. Normally we do tons of research, we plan out our week, painstakingly make costumes because we love to dress up for Halloween and go to possibly multiple costume events.
And I didn't finish mine in time last year, so I finished it after Halloween last year so that I would have plenty of time and not be scrambling at the last minute.
Ryan's costume was 2 years in the making, and even though Halloween was on a Friday, prime time, there were no costume events to be found in the city at all. The only costume events I could find were on Halloween proper when we weren't going to be in LA, but there was like a bar crawl at 1 or 2 places in Hollywood nearby the House of Spirits. So I was like, I made a costume, I brought it to Los Angeles. I'm not going to let this week fly past without a chance to put on the costume. So we were driving around Hollywood, and every place we went had a huge line out the door. Of course, it was Thursday night in Hollywood. At 1 a.m., every bar had lines around the block of people in costumes, which was good to see, but it's like, oh, we're not getting in.
So eventually we just ditched my friends in Hollywood so they could take an Uber home, and then we went to Swingers.
We invited your friends to Swingers, and they declined.
Oh, no, we actually drove them all the way to Swingers.
Yeah. They were at the motherland. They were at Swingers, and they pieced out. But like the Swingers of old, like the unofficial after party for Halloween, it was Mischief Night, and everyone at Swingers was in costume. So we pulled on I pulled on my costume. Did you pull on your costume?
I pulled on half of my costume, because my full costume requires a pants change, which I couldn't do on the street on Beverly Boulevard.
Yeah, in Hollywood, maybe. Beverly Boulevard, no.
So yeah, Swingers was a great time, and everybody loved Jeff's costume. Validation, I would say.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was in Los Angeles over the summer, and I was just digging all these little Coco delivery robots that scoot up and down Ryan Street. And I thought, you know what, that's a very LA thing, or it's a very Southern California thing. I want to dress up as a Coco delivery robot. And I did. There's scant pictures to prove it, but people seem to like it.
People did like it.
The very next day was the big day, the end of October, the 31st, All Hallows Eve. What better way to celebrate Halloween than to see Robert Englund get his star on the Hollywood Boulevard? So that's what we did.
Sort of. If you squinted really hard, we could see Robert Englund get his star on the Walk of Fame.
Kind of like driving through Hollywood at 1 a.m. on a Thursday, thinking you're going to get into a club. It occurred to me like, oh, we should have gotten here hours ago in order to see this ceremony.
I was actually pretty fine with it. I'm glad we weren't crammed in with all the people on the other side. And oddly enough, that's the first time I've ever seen this in 23 years of living in California. I've never seen anyone get their star on the Walk of Fame.
Eli Roth did the opening ceremony. Heather Langenkamp came out and told stories about working with Robert Englund early on in her career. Then Robert Englund came out and told stories about living in Hollywood and like his roommates and trying to live their dreams out. I knew I was going to like it, but man, it was awesome. So we went to Ripley's Believe It or Not. I had been there once.
I had never been there. It was delightful. I had a lovely time in there.
Absolutely delightful.
It's the kind of place you steer clear of when you live here because you're like, Ripley's, dumb. And we had the run of the place. We were the only ones in there.
But we didn't have long to stick around because we decided to put all of our eggs into one basket for Halloween. We were going to Knott's Scary Farm.
Tired of Halloween parties that really bite? Come to Knott's Halloween Haunt.
Aren't you afraid, Grant?
With dozens of horrifying rides, shows, and attractions.
Scared stiff.
It's the biggest and scariest Halloween party
In the world.
with 11 mind-twisting mazes, monsters, mayhem, and madness. So hurry and get your tickets to Knott's Halloween Haunt before it sells out. They're tickets to die for.
Many years ago, I went to Knott's Scary Farm and I was underwhelmed because their idea of mazes was basically plywood hallways and spray paint. Really low effort, bad, amateur, horrible backyard haunt style for a theme park. In the ensuing decades, people have been trying to convince me that Knott's Scary Farm is better than Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, which I've been going to almost every year since they opened, and I'm like, you're wrong. They're just literally on other levels.
And I had never been to Knott's because Jeff told me this, and I was like, oh, well, the hell with it.
But after years of people swearing it was so...
Including the proprietor of Midsummer Scream, who said it was the best thing going.
So Ryan Drew and I took the journey there. The park itself is incredible. It's huge. It is historical. I think it's one of the oldest theme parks in Southern California.
Still got that rickety-ass wooden roller coaster to prove it.
When they shot the starter pistol and finally let us all in, it was dark and it was foggy.
Dark, foggy, and spooktacular.
Yeah, but like you could not see your hand in front of your face.
Yeah, I really liked that.
I liked it also. It was irresponsibly dark, which is pretty incredible. And I remember in those first few years when I was going to Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, it was like that, where you might walk through like a football field length of park, not able to see anything, not know where you're going. And eventually over the years, they're like, people probably shouldn't walk into poles or like fall down stairs.
It was pretty wonderful. It was basically like Universal used to be, where it was like total spooky immersion.
Yeah, I will say that we were having a hard time getting around, and I was asking an employee, I was like, we're having a hard time getting around. He's like, I have a hard time getting around during the day. He's like, at night, it's impossible.
But boy, did we get our steps in. We did a lot of walking at Knott's Scary Farm. I think we covered the length and breadth of that park at least 10 times.
Found out that our main man, Drew, is a roller coaster fiend.
A fucking nut for them shits.
So he was digging the roller coasters. Ryan and I obviously wanted to hit up the spooky mazes. What did you think of the mazes?
There were some good ones. There were some not so good ones. I mean, my scariest moment was riding the accelerator roller coaster when that thing takes off. It was terrifying, and my stomach still hurts from hanging off the bar during the upside down part. But, you know, the first couple of mazes, I was like, oh boy, here we go. And then there were a couple that were fantastic. There were always big giant animatronic monsters. At one point, there was a character that jumped out of the darkness on some bungee cords. I got to go through one entire maze all by myself, which is unprecedented in a big theme park environment. And that would never happen at Universal. It was incredible. I was like, why can't it always be this way? I got to see every character, every spook, every animatronic. And then Jeff and Drew didn't see the bungee cord lady, and so we went to the same maze later in the night, and she had gone home for the evening. Oh, and we rode a raging river early in the night, so we were soaked for the entire...
Early in the evening, and man, a wave crested the watercraft we were on.
Perfectly.
And just drenched me, and it was 60 degrees and dropping like a stone, and I did not dry off for the rest of the night. A lot of the mazes were pretty cookie cutter with sort of corpse kitchen.
Yeah, lots of corpse.
But there were some that were very original, very exciting. There was Cinema Slasher. There was 8 Fingers 9. I thought between the two, the Slasher one or the Boogeyman one, those are going to be my favorites. And then at the very end, we found this one called Mesmer, which was this carnival-style haunted maze. And normally, like, the clown stuff, the carnival stuff's kind of overplayed. But this Mesmer one was so cool. Like, it really reached artistically.
And we lost a lot of evening to ride breakdowns and stuff. The first roller coaster Drew and I got on broke down, and we got stuck on it for like 25, 30 minutes.
45.
45 minutes.
We had debated whether or not we even needed to get front of line or fast pass for Not Scary Farm because...
Oh man, thank Christ we did.
A friend of Ryan's was like, I didn't need it.
Last year, although I doubt that she did any rides. The rides are what really kind of screwed us in terms of time.
But we would not have been able to do all... A, we couldn't find the mazes. B, we would not have been able to do them. And if I waited an hour for each of those mazes, it would have definitely been calculated into how I felt about those mazes.
It would have been old-time Universal for us before we decided to start mortgaging our houses, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
For front-of-the-line tickets.
So living in Southern California, you are inundated with ad campaigns about all the delicious autumnal treats that they have at Knott's Berry Farm. All the pies, all the jams and jellies and treats. And I was like, I know I'm in California, but I'm expecting some autumnal treats. I want to get some cider. I want to get some apple cider donuts. I'm really looking forward to this. I want to get my beloved boysenberry.
Some sausage.
Nothing inside the park. But here's what I'll say. The Not Scary Farm that I experienced on Halloween was miles better than it was the very first time I went. It has made huge improvements and evolved. However, would I stack it up against Universal? I wouldn't.
Universal has the Mummy ride.
Yeah, sorry guys. I went in with an open mind, and Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, still better.
I'm very glad I went to Knott's. Will I go again? Probably Knott's.
Probably Knott's.
They're tickets to die for!
That was our Halloween recap. If you could narrow it down, what was your Halloween highlight?
Probably Knott's, just because it was the biggest and the loudest and the craziest. Although Delusion was very fun. I really liked Olvera Street. That was like so Halloween-y.
Yeah, we just spent all this time telling you about these big ticket items that we spent a lot of money on and we're looking forward to. We've got our tickets months in advance, and they were all a little bit underwhelming this year, whereas all of the unplanned stuff, all of these unexpected things that just emerge from our time in Los Angeles, I think those were the highlights for me.
Agreed. Especially since those are spontaneous things and everything else we've been to many, many times.
Yeah, and we're comparing. That is our curse. We compare everything year to year.
Yeah.
I guess that means we can never go back to No Bar again.
Nope.
All right, well, Ryan, let me be the first to say happy Fangsgiving, and we shall reconvene for the We Bleed Orange and Black 2025 Holiday Special.
Christmas again. Who wants another